time if you only ask for it. And you mentioned something that we have an opportunity here for me to share the Christian factor for my website, and it's an interesting story, and it's also a painful story because I've been brutalized for being a witness against corruption, fraud, and satanic ritual practices. My losses are in the 7 figures. I hit $1 million in losses a few years ago.
Wow.
And I have sacrificed a great deal, and I will not back down. Let me just say that at the beginning of the newsletter in 2004, okay, Judson, I've finished 21 years now with the newsletter. I'm now becoming an older veteran, like a fossil, okay? When you get older in the analysis business and like a speaker business or a website editor business, they start to call you a fossil. I like to think of myself as a veteran.
Yeah.
And a veteran without a uniform, without insignias, without rank, and without medals, and without Purple Hearts. Therefore, and I'm kind of a rough guy. I use phrases like dumbass. Okay, so I'll do my best, but I don't know what is a better term than dumbass in the public. How about well-meaning ignorant fools? Okay,
yeah.
There are a lot of them out there, and they don't see me as a veteran of war with medals and wounds. They see me as a person who's been harmed and probably made a lot of mistakes. So there's a big contrast between the aware and the unaware in perceptions. But I'm in my 22nd year, and let me just say, let me just cover the Christian standpoint before we get into reset and financial issues and wealth transfer, because this is the biggest transformation in a century. This is cell phones, internet, broadband, you name it, online. It's all rolled into one and much bigger than that. So those who denigrate and say, oh, crypto is full of crap. Yeah, well, you're going to be left behind because you're kind of an idiot. Okay, those people are idiots, and they'll be left behind. And if they're lucky, they won't get run over.
Yeah.
Okay. It was 2017. Do you remember the Hillary campaign?
I do.
Against Donald Trump.
Yes, I do. Yep.
Do you remember in the following several months in 17, there was a controversy about Hillary, her Manhattan apartment, and the illegal servers.
Yes.
And the data and the secure databases that she sold, and the Podesta controversy, and the integration with the Clinton Foundation and murders.
Yep.
And then at the same time, we heard more and more stories about Wall Street, Bohemian Grove. We heard about Hollywood. It took on the nickname of Holly Blood. And we heard about the Getty Museum, and we heard about a lot of different things about the cabal. Until 2017, I hadn't heard much about the World Economic Forum in Davos.
Right.
Otherwise just known as Davos. So we started getting inklings about their corruption, and far more than their corruption, we heard about their evil. I just want to say that in 2017, around March, April, May, June, I did easily 15 to 20 interview shows, and I spoke openly about Hillary, Podesta, Wall Street, Geneva generally. It's Davos, but Geneva is their center. Hollywood and movie set, and Do we have to go through another round of terror movies? Can we have a family value movie once in a while? No, we have to have the terror. Okay, I went off. I went overboard, Judson. I really did. I was disgusted. I was angry. And that's when everything changed for me. Everything I touched turned into a gigantic loss.
Wow.
I've had 4 different incidents that have cost over $300,000. What I'm driving at is in 2017, everything began to turn very deadly, full of losses, tremendous damage, fires in property, erupted septic tanks, car crashes. I mean, I have a few car crashes. They're all deadly.
So Jim, is this
wrongful death lawsuits? I mean,
I just want to understand. So what is this? Do you think these are spiritual attacks? Were they, or were you being targeted by the deep state or something? Like what was happening here?
I think it's the deep state and their satanic angle.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't put a lot of stock to answer your question. Yes, I'm under dark, occult, powerful forces and attack.
Yeah.
They're trying to silence me by bankrupting me. What they don't realize is that Christians have an army, and the army supports the valiant soldier. I never got respect from my own family. My brother, my sister, my father, my mother died before the newsletter really took off. My father called the death threats that I received in Munich, Germany at a conference, he called it self-aggrandizement.
Oh,
Jim, you're not that important. I said, Dad, you don't know what I'm doing. You don't know what my audience is. You don't know what impact I'm having on the enemy. You don't even know what the dollar is. You don't know what bankers are. And you don't even know what the past wars are all about. I'm under attack, Judson, and I prayed for protection. It took me several months to realize what was going on. You know, when you're under attack, you don't realize, oh my gosh, I'm under satanic attack. No, it becomes kind of an evolved comprehension. After a couple of events, I talked to my best friend, colleague who's in the suburbs, and he said, Jim, you're really screwing up. And I said, I don't think so. These are innocent mistakes, and I'm not responsible for a fire. How is that screwing up?
Right.
A year later, he said, okay, Jim, I get it. I get it. You're over the target. You're shining a light on very dangerous, evil people, the banksters. I said, it's a lot more than the banksters. And he said, oh yeah, I know. It's the military, the Satanists in the military who want war. I call it forever war. No, I call it endless war. They call it forever war. And notice that Trump has now changed the name. It's not Department of Defense, it's Department of War. So he's pointing out the war. We have a war tendency. We have a war economy. We create conflict in order to sell weapons. We send our obsolete weapons to Ukraine so they can be destroyed, and then the weapon makers can get a new contract to replace the destroyed obsolete weapons. Anyway, a year later, my good buddy said, Jim, I get it. I get it. You're under attack. And at that point, all of my colleagues understood. They said, Jim, we give you information, we give you analysis, and we give you charts, and we give you data, and we give you our analytic points, theories that are evolving into a large crime scene and a big event. And you're the one who's taking the flak.
So people are going to think you're a conspiracy theorist, Looney Tune. So
I am a conspiracy theorist, and the rest of the people are dumbasses.
Yeah.
The conspiracy theorists are up to now 48-0. Have you been keeping score? When a person like me prays, it's not just for help me, protect me. No. No. I pray for the Holy Spirit to make me wise.
Yeah.
I don't, Judson, I never pray for long suffering. I pray for strength.
Yeah.
I pray for gentleness when I'm frustrated.
Okay, so let's go into the financial part of this. So
Sure.
we agree that we're headed toward a financial reset, that there's going to be a massive wealth transfer, and you said that earlier in the episode that it was the biggest one in history.
Yep.
And I think you know, what people, you have to start with educating people on that's a reality, because most people are like, nah, it's probably not going to happen, right? That's probably not true. So we start by educating them in, yes, this is going to happen and this is why. So why don't we start there, and then we'll go into what people do about it.
Okay, let me give the motive and the justification for the financial transformation. Did you like Black Monday?
When was that?
October 1987. Did you? You may not have even been alive. Sorry about that.
I was alive, but I was a kid. Yeah.
You were a little kid. For me, it was a very painful day. I lost a lot of money with Apple computer stock and another one. Okay. Black Monday was something that I forecasted 2 years in advance. No newsletter. I was just in my office at Digital Equipment Corporation, DEC. Okay, back then it was IBM number 1, DEC number 2, Hewlett Packard number 3. It was 1984. I said, you know, Bob, Jack, and John, I don't know how long it's going to be, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I don't know. We're going to have a financial incident because we've offshored our industry. We've sent it to the Pacific Rim and India and Pakistan and Brazil and wherever. And they said, yeah, Jim, I think you're right. I don't know how it's going to play out. Black Monday, 1987. Alan Greenspan thought that we were financially advanced with financial technology and offloaded risk and derivatives, and he was wrong. Alan Greenspan was wrong about almost everything, and he's revered like some kind of a saint. Well, he worked for the British Crown. That's why they dubbed him Sir Alan Greenspan. He didn't work for the United States. He worked for the British Crown. Okay, Black Monday was a debt event because we had insufficient collateral and industry to manage our debt. Okay, did you like the dot-com bust in 2000? Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, that was fun.
Again, fraud in stocks. How do you value like Amazon? They haven't really grown and flourished and made a lot of profit. So how do you value it? We saw Cisco Systems, the networking company. They became the first company to be valued at $1 trillion market cap. And some dumbasses said, that'll never happen again. Apple Computer, Microsoft, Google, NVIDIA. Shall I go on? They're all over $1 trillion in market cap. So the dot-com boom was punctured by Robert Rubin. Okay, Robert Rubin was the Department of Treasury head, Secretary of Treasury. And nobody seems to think it was important, but in hindsight now I see it. In June of 2000, he decided, I'm not going to stay the entire Clinton II administration. I'm not going to stay to the November election. It's June 2000, and I'm going to resign my post as Treasury Secretary. Why? Robert, please tell us why. Because I'm going to short the stock market. He started raising interest rates, began the process with the Fed, and resigned so that he could make a few billion. Because he knows that the nation is full of dumbasses and they won't figure it out. All right. Did you enjoy the Lehman crisis in 2008? Wasn't that a lot of fun? Okay. I had the newsletter by that. I started in April of 2004. And in early 2007, I noticed that we had a problem with Lehman Brothers and their credit default swap, which is an insurance policy against the Lehman Brothers Corporation bond, their corporate bond. And normally a credit default swap, which means if it fails, you get redeemed in treasury bonds. It's an insurance policy that pays out in treasury bonds. So it's protection. And normally it's about 15 basis points, which means 0.15 of 1%. 15 100ths of 1%. When it got up to 60 basis points and 80 basis points, I learned about it because I had a colleague who showed me. Said, Jim, you got to see this. Lehman Brothers, it's like 60, 70 basis points on the CDS, credit default swap. My question was naive. What's a credit default swap? Yeah, I was young. I was in my third year of the newsletter. He said it's an insurance policy against a corporate bond paid out in treasury bonds upon default. I said, oh, a failure insurance policy. Yeah. When it got over 100 basis points, I said, Lehman is going to fail. It's going to fail. It was early 2008. I told my clients, get out of Fannie Mae. It's going to be, ground zero. Get out of Lehman Brothers if you invest in that. Be careful with your real estate. And I noticed something called the Mortgage Electronic Registry System, MERS. And Wall Street said, we're going to put all property titles in the MERS to make sure that everything is fine. No, they made everything fraudulent. The average number of mortgages within a single mortgage bond was 2.5. They were double using secure streams for mortgage payments in 2.5 different mortgage bonds.
Right.
So 150% fraudulent, 100% legitimate. Okay. How many people know that JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs had more than double the criminal fraud volume compared to Lehman Brothers? Not many.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I didn't know that.
More than twice. So they strong-armed Hank Greenberg and AIG, took over the financial insurance, and Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan got 100 cents on the dollar for their credit default swaps. 100 cents on the dollar. Everybody else got 65 cents. Then the ones who were late, they got 30 to 35 cents. It was a crime scene. Okay. Did you enjoy the quantitative easing and 0% interest rates? Did you enjoy having no return on your bond savings? Did you enjoy paying higher insurance premiums because the insurance companies didn't earn any interest on treasury bonds? That's a 0% impact. Okay, we've got 3 decades of criminal fraud. If you like it, continue with the existing system. If you don't like the fraud, consider a digital tokenized financial structure system based on encryption. Wow. Loud thunder. Thunder. Wow. As soon as I said it, if you like the fraud, stay with the system. If you want to have a blockchain, most people don't even know, whoa, what's a blockchain? Well, it's like an open source ledger where you can see fraud. Oh, that's good, isn't it? Yes, it is good. Why don't you like crypto? Because I don't know what it is. Why don't you learn about what it is? Oh, I don't care. I'm pretty busy. Okay. Nation, dumbasses. Okay. Most people who don't like the whole transformation to the digital infrastructure and encrypted systems and blockchain accounting book. Imagine having the 2024 and 2020 election for the president on the blockchain where votes could not be changed and dead people could be recognized easily and duplicate voting could be recognized easily. And you run a computer program and you clean it out, and in 3 hours you got legitimate voting count. How would that be? Oh, that'd be good. Then why don't you like the blockchain and the digital architecture that we're proposing? Well, I don't know what it is. Okay, we're full of ignoramuses. in my case, it's talk about evil and fraud frequently on shows like this, and I get hit. So people tell me, why don't you just shut up? And I said, the Lord Jesus values brave people who defend the children and defend the truth. The truth is of high value, and innocence of children. Remember the many stories in the gospel, the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The disciples said, oh, keep those children away. Don't bother Jesus. And Jesus said, no, I get tingles. Oh my gosh. Let the children come to me.
Yeah.
Why?
If you're not like these children, then you're not going to make it to heaven.
You got to be like a child before God. In other words, not proud. You don't know it all. Anyway, we must defend the truth. Back to our world here. And right now, there has been a very interesting plot. I don't want to call it a conspiracy, but XRP, I have 3 investments, 4 that I really love.
Okay,
gold,
great.
silver, wheat and precious metals. It's a stock, WPM, and XRP.
Why WPM?
They buy byproduct silver at a discount, multi-year contract. Imagine a Canadian company with a Chilean zinc mine, and they produce tonnage of zinc, and 8% of what they produce is silver. What do they do with the silver? You don't throw it away. You put it in a pile and you sell it to wheat and precious metals at a 30% discount on a 10-year contract. Wow, what a business model. Then you got copper miners, and they got silver. Then you got gold miners, and they got silver, byproduct, what they don't want, what they're not targeting. Zinc, tin, copper, gold, they all have, oh gosh, I see some beautiful pieces of rock, and they're bluish gray. That's zinc silver. Beautiful, with some quartz in there. It's all natural. It's all gorgeous. All right, so wheat and precious metals, when silver doubles in price, wheat and precious metals goes up about 150%. Not 100,
Wow.
150%. Actually, more than that.
Is it a good time to everything, gold and silver have been going up. So is it still an okay time to buy?
Sure. But I like XRP better. And this is the focus of my story. There was a plot. Okay. Those people who've been following finance are well aware of Ripple and XRP and the lawsuit with the Security and Exchange Commission. Yeah. Okay. Here's my point, and I am firm in my point. It started about 3 years ago. They knew at the SEC that they had no case.
Yep.
They were slowing down Ripple and the investment community. They did not want you and me to buy any of the XRP stock. They advised the coin exchanges like Uphold and others, Coinbase, Binance. None of them offered XRP. So while Ripple was developing their global standard for transfer technology, the public was anti-XRP, thinking that they're doing something illegal and it'll never be a good investment. Well, I got a rule, Judson. If Wall Street hates it, I like it. In late 2023, Bitcoin went down something like 30%. I don't know, about 80,000 to 80,000 to 55,000 or so. Maybe it was 2022. I get a little bit blurred on the years, but it was the second year of the Ukraine war, and the Russians captured a Bitcoin factory underground in Ukraine. Anyway, JP Morgan came out after a 30% drop in Bitcoin and said Bitcoin's going to zero. I said, that's the bottom. It was the bottom. Okay, yeah. These are not really smart criminals when they ply their trade. So when they said XRP is a bad investment, it has no future, I thought XRP is a great investment and it will own the future. And all we needed was a new president called Trump. I don't like some of the things his family is doing. And by the way, can anybody tell me why Eric Trump doesn't have a shred of resemblance to Donald Trump in his facial appearance? Can anybody tell me? Because I have an inquiring mind. I am not a dumbass. So the Trump family, this is really interesting. The Trump family talks about Bitcoin and the reserve usage, and they describe a global transfer standard with all of its characteristics without saying XRP, and they are describing XRP. So now we got the SEC off their back. Ripple used those 3 years to develop international connections with 40 central banks. And they're going to have the global standard. They're already being used with SWIFT. SWIFT regards them as a competitor because they're not that bright. They're very protective of their monopoly. They don't want a partner. They want a defeated competitor. Okay. In the business parlance, SWIFT is guilty of a win-lose philosophy.
Right.
Whereas Ripple has a win-win philosophy. One of the most wonderful things about Ripple Tech is that they believe that they're working with partners to create the global infrastructure for the next generation, and will all be beneficiaries and winners. So I believe in the hydraulic effect, where we're going to have 100 major corporations, I mean multi-billion-dollar corporations, and they're going to funnel capital into 5 or 6 digital crypto type, they call them altcoins.
Yep.
Okay, Bitcoin and Ethereum are called cryptocurrencies. The ones that have intellectual property, the ones that have adoption by corporations, the ones that have contracts for usage, etc., those are called altcoins, meaning alternative coins. What's the difference between an altcoin and like a Bitcoin currency? Bitcoin has no intellectual property. It's just basically an anti-dollar coin, which is the preferred coin for money laundering. Bitcoin went from 50 to 100,000, now 120,000. Never would have happened without money laundering. Never. Okay, so let's just leave that alone. Another dark topic. So, if you want to become a millionaire, get 10,000 XRP.
At this price, at the current price, anywhere around $3 is fine.
$30,000, it'll turn into $1 million. So this is really like your second chance at Bitcoin, but it's not Bitcoin 2.0.
Right.
XRP has no resemblance to Bitcoin. It has intellectual property. And here's the biggest competitive advantage of XRP. It's called on-demand liquidity. And this is a subtle point regarding banking. But if you, at a corporation, you want to send $20 million to Rome, Italy. Rome, Italy must put up a $20 million escrow. And you, to send your 20 million, you need to put up a 20 million escrow at your bank. Each bank needs to put up 20 million in escrow. They're called corresponding bank escrow accounts. XRP eliminates all that. It's like a consensual agreement. I call it a corporate handshake. And they've made it very elaborate. It's a consensual contract. And it's very clever. It's got, I do not fully understand it, but what I believe what it does is that it makes an incremental agreement with handshakes, so that at each agreement you work toward the top and bang, okay, we're now in agreement. We've made 80 agreements. So we trust each other because we've been working on this, and it's all in microseconds. Okay, this is very sophisticated. And the example I heard of was in March or April. They moved $40 million. It took 2 seconds. It cost 3 cents.
Yeah, I've heard of that example. So XRP is it's not replacing the dollar. It's so it would be transferring currencies between countries or the dollar. It's the rails basically, right?
It's
Where it's
on
like,
the rails. It's moving value, moving funds, moving asset on the rails, and
yeah,
very fast. Okay, I have my own little favorite metaphors. The stable coins are like an ocean of liquidity. Atop the ocean, you've got boats like corporations and banks, and they move cargo. Except on the ocean, they move at the speed of light. So you got ships that move at the speed of light, moving big time cargo and at the cost of pennies. That's XRP.
yeah.
And I could go on and on, but I suggest people go to golden-jackass.com and sign up for the newsletter, because I usually have a chapter on XRP. What is happening now is that banks are realizing, and that's a bank, they're financial institutions. Fidelity is not a bank, okay? Fidelity is a financial corporation that has loads of mutual funds and a stock brokerage, okay?
Right.
And they're gonna issue an ETF, exchange traded fund, with XRP as its basis. They want to realize between an 80 and 85% cost reduction in transferring funds around the country and the globe. 80 to 85%. This is not going to happen in 18 steps in 18 months. It's going to happen quickly, because no one is going to want to be left behind like, well, we compete with Fidelity. They just went to XRP in their standard bridge asset for transfer, but we're going to wait 6 or 8 months and continue to absorb huge costs and let our competitors take a big 80% cut in their, oh no, sorry, not going to happen. It's going to happen fast.
So if we hold XRP on an exchange like Coinbase or whatever, is that going to become an issue?
No, but I advise not to use Coinbase, because they are like the champion home front for fraud, hacking. Don't go with the biggest. Go with the lesser. Go with the Winklevoss's Gemini. Go with Atomic. Go with Exodus.
Kraken.
Go with Kraken is very big, and they've never. I've not heard a single story of fraud hacking with Kraken, but over half the fraud cases that I heard are Coinbase. Coinbase is in trouble right now. I do not like Coinbase. I do not recommend Coinbase. I do not recommend Binance. And it's subtle, and I'll try to describe it quickly. But if you got 10,000 people and they're buying all kinds of different coins, XLM, XRP, Solana, Cardano, and Bitcoin and Ethereum, they're moving around. The exchange might not have everything that you buy, but they put it in your account.
Yeah, right.
And they
it's like
hope
fractionalized banking.
It's what?
It's like fractionalized banking.
Yes, but it's called managing the float.
Yeah.
The critical term. And they're hoping that in a 24-hour, 48-hour period,
right,
they can get everything cleared and settled properly. Binance got in trouble 2 years ago, because they worked up their float to be $5 billion. Oh,
wow.
And they got slammed. They got shut down, slammed, paid a fine, and had to rework their system to manage the float. In other words, they had to buy more and invest more for their own inventory, so they could satisfy clients who bought something, and when they delivered it, it was really delivered and not part of a float that they were managing or mismanaging. Oh my gosh. Okay. We're working now on the tail end of the Security and Exchange Commission abuse and financial obstruction bordering on criminal activity against Ripple Labs, Ripple Tech, same thing. Ripple has never attempted to sue the US government for frivolous fraud. What they do is they use it and say, we overcame that. We are bigger than that. Invest in us and produce generational wealth. If you missed out on Bitcoin, we got something that is so much better than Bitcoin with intellectual property. What's their intellectual property? They got many. But their main one is on-demand liquidity to eliminate the escrow corresponding bank. And if you think that's small, you're dead wrong. It's between 10 and $20 trillion a year in the global financial system that can now be freed up for economic development, corporate development, business expansion, lending to businesses. Wow.
So
this is big, very big.
I think I know the answer to this question, but what are the percentage chance that XRP is the one?
The one, meaning they will have the global standard. You made a comment. I'll answer and then I'll address a comment you made. I'm like 80 to 90% sure they're going to become the global standard in transfer tech. 80 to 90% sure. And if you had asked me 3 months ago, I would have said 70.
Okay.
But the more I study, the more I learn, the more I talk with my smartest crypto colleagues, the more certain I am. I'm more certain every week compared to the previous week.
Yeah.
Okay, you made a comment that it's not going to replace the dollar. Well, in a certain interpretation, it might do just that. If we see a migration of central bank Forex holding, meaning their savings accounts, their bonds, the ones where they hope to earn 4, 5, 6% a year, they're not like Italy's central bank, like Hungary's central bank, like Oman's central bank. They got a bunch of savings. And something like 60% of it is in US Treasury bonds.
Right.
They're slowly being converted to stable coins. They're using Ethereum predominantly as the collateral for the stable coin, which means they're using their treasury bonds to buy Ethereum because Ethereum is the choice. And a guy named Rob Cunningham, former Morgan Stanley, had a great metaphor. He said, Wall Street is fascinated by the shiny object. I love that. He called Ethereum the shiny object attracting Wall Street's attention. They like Ethereum because the other Wall Street firm, they like Ethereum. And the older guy I know over there in Wall Street, they like Ethereum. Well, what happens down the road when they realize that Ethereum is inferior to XRP? Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's called the spillover effect.
Right.
And it happens in November. So we're
like
very
like
we're likely to see like tripling. They call it 3x. These crypto guys, they have their own language. Like a DEX is a decentralized exchange, a DEX. Yeah. 3x is tripling. We got a 10x coin here. They think it's going to go up tenfold, 1,000%.
Yep.
I think it's very possible in the next few months, not 10 months, few months, that XRP could go up tenfold, 10x, because of adoption, because of recognition of its on-demand liquidity feature that Ethereum doesn't have it. I just did a Bitcoin sale complete. And when I did it, I thought, okay, now finally, it's done. Now I'm going to buy XRP. Bang! 1 second.
Yeah. How did you buy it? Did you buy it on one of the platforms you mentioned?
That what? Buy what?
How did you buy it? You bought your XRP on a exchange?
Yeah, an exchange. It's the only place you can.
Yeah. Okay.
Soon they're going to have ETFs where you can have like a Wall Street company or Fidelity or boutiques. My favorite boutique is Canary Capital. Canary, like the bird, capital. Why? Because the guy is outspoken and he's really talking a lot of really good sense. The CEO, a guy named McClurg, he said, Jim, we got these estimates. Oh, he didn't say Jim. He's talking to the host. He said to the host, we've got JP Morgan and Standard Chartered estimating that between now and the end of the year, there's going to be $5 to $8 billion in ETFs investing in XRP. And he said, I'm here to tell you that our estimates are way low and we're getting twice the subscription of what we expected. So 5 to 8 might be 10 to 15 billion.
Yeah.
If you get 10 billion, there's no way XRP will be under 20 to 25.
Wow.
So
That's
we
such
get
a massive return.
they're calling it private sector participation, public participation.
So we're just in the fog of war right now, right? We're just in the they're getting
sorted out.
Yeah.
Things are getting sorted out.
Yeah.
We're done with the SEC. We got a new guy named Paul Atkins. And what's he doing at the SEC? He's doing everything that Gensler didn't do. Gensler got in the way. He slowed it down. Why did he slow it down? So the banks could buy XRP and you and I would be discouraged from doing so.
Yeah, right.
The banks are accumulating. They're keeping it under $3 right now so that BlackRock, Bank of America, BNY Mellon, they're accumulating.
How do we know that they're accumulating? We can see that on the blockchain. Is that right?
I don't see it on the blockchain. I infer.
Okay.
This is
what they're hiding it.
They're hiding. This is what I do. Okay. And I get help. I have smart colleagues, and when we're not murdered, we're able to do some good work.
Right.
And that's not meant to be a funny line. Rob Kirby was murdered in Toronto 4 years ago. By the way, he was murdered with remdesivir. They
Really?
killed his kidney, and he died in 24 hours in a hospital. Okay. This is going to be the largest wealth transfer in history because we've got all kinds of different companies that are accumulating and adopting this technology. Here are the clues where I infer it. You asked me how?
Yeah.
Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock. What are they, $14 trillion company? He was asked at a panel, and they were talking about many of the different transfer mechanisms and technologies and developments. And Garlinghouse, CEO of Ripple, was there. And the host asked Larry Fink, do you have a spot XRP exchange traded fund planned or several at BlackRock? And he said, I can't say. And they giggled. They giggled. And the host said, wait a minute. You're a $14 trillion company. Do you or do you not have an XRP ETF plan? And he said, look, I'm under NDA. I can't talk about it. In other words, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
More. There's more. Certain analysts are out there checking the XRP inventory in the coin exchanges. And here's a technical term. What is the size of the Coinbase exchange wallet for XRP coins? How many million or billions coins do they have in the Coinbase corporate wallet? That's their inventory, Judson. Well, down 90% in the last 30 days. So the analysts
buying it.
Pardon me?
Somebody's buying it.
Somebody's buying it. These are not small hands. Okay, so then the same analyst checks 5 or 6 other major exchanges like Binance, like Uphold, and they're all down over 70% in their exchange wallet inventory count of XRP. There's a tremendous amount of accumulation going on. So it brings about another question. This is not a simple concept. Well, if there's all this demand and accumulation, why isn't the price going up? It's stuck between 285 and 310. because that's the way they want it. When you're BlackRock and when you're Bank of America or Bank New York Mellon, okay, by the way, Bank New York Mellon has 42 trillion in assets under management. They want to tokenize it and get stable coins so they can do all their transfers with an 80% cost reduction.
Right. Yeah.
Bank of America has $40 trillion in assets under management. They want the same thing. If you got 21 different financial firms, including Franklin Templeton, which is big, and Fidelity, which is big, and they're all going to come out with exchange-traded funds focusing on XRP, do you think they want their clients to make all the money? Or do you think the companies, the financial firms, want to buy it first before they offer it? They need, it's not a want, they need to accumulate it. Okay, so this is my inference, Judson. And I don't see any holes in it. I've been maintaining this point of view for a solid month.
Yeah.
I told a friend of mine a month ago, I said to her, don't be surprised if we get into October and we're still stuck at 3. Why? We have all these ETFs coming out. I said, because the firms behind the ETFs are going to want to accumulate it at a low price. If they don't accumulate it at a low price, they're going to get this tremendous demand of between 5 and 8 or between 10 and $15 billion in the next 3 months. And they're not going to have it. So they got to go bidding out in the market where we got what they're now calling a supply shock.
Yeah.
There's inadequate supply. You got billions of demand and you got 1/10 the available coins. How do you manage that in a market? Easy. You move it to $20 and hope that some people will say, I'm willing to part with a quarter of what I have because my boy is going to college next year.
Yep.
Or because my wife got vaccinated and we got medical bills. Or
so are you holding then? Then, you know, if you have the ability to hold it, right? So if you have the ability to hold XRP, you got to hold it for 5 years, 10 years.
That's what I plan to do. There was a survey done with 1,500 different XRP Army members. That's what we're called.
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, I don't give financial advice. I tell stories. I'm a storyteller. There was a poll of 1,500 people. And by the way, with that amount, you have a 95% confidence interval, about 2%, plus or minus 2%. If you got 1,000, remember, I'm a doctorate in statistics.
Yeah.
If you got 1,000 in the poll, you got 95% confidence interval, plus or minus 3%. And I don't wish to explain that, but just think of it as a poll with about 3% accuracy.
Yeah, we get it.
Okay. There's a
highly likely.
There's a probability statement that I could make, but I don't want to go over people's heads. Let's keep it simple. Okay. We got a poll of XRP Army members, meaning they're investors, and the accuracy of the poll, plus or minus 2%. 74% said they have no plans of selling at all. They're going to let it run, maybe 100-fold and not sell. Now, what people say and what people do are two very, very different things. Like, oh, I will never touch that woman, my neighbor, because I'm a happily married man, but my wife went on vacation and I got a little drunk. Oh my gosh. Okay. What people say and what people do. Okay. You got another group of people, and I know a few. Jim, I got 110,000 coins of XRP. Did a consult call with a lady. Jim, I got 130,000 coins. And if this thing goes up a lot, I'm going to give you a nice gift because you helped me to stay with it during the lawsuits. I said, stick with it. The lawsuit is frivolous. They're trying to prevent you from buying it. Buy what they don't want you to buy. Okay. So you got some people and they hold 100,000 coins. It goes up to 30. Holy moly, they got up to 30, 100,000 coins. They got $3 million. Okay, you know, when you get a lot of zeros, I have some trouble.
Yeah.
I admit I get that 30 million or 300. No, that's 3 million. Okay, 3 million. So the lady in New Jersey who talked to me a couple of weeks ago, she'll have $3 million. Now, she's 77 years old. Do you think she needs to hold it another 10 years? Or does you think she might want to do a Caribbean cruise with a couple of friends and pay for it with her winnings? So she told me, Jim, I have no plans on selling, but I said, well, what happens, lady? You know, I use her name. What happens, lady, if it goes up to 30 and you're sitting on $3 million? That's $3.5 million. Would you be tempted to sell 10%, 300,000, live the high life? She said, that'll be very tempting. Okay, this is where you don't do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah. There's so many other things I would love to ask you about, but we've been going on for a while. I feel like we should wrap this up.
Why don't we do a little rapid fire? Why don't you pick like 5 favorite questions and I'll give you quick answers. And
okay.
Then I'll promote my website after that.
Great. What's going to happen in Bitcoin?
Bitcoin will continue to go up and may hit $1 million in several years because there's going to be a lot of official adoption of it. And there will always be money laundering that will want to hide from U.S. government policing eyes.
Okay, so if you're looking at it as a store of value, it sounds like it's going to be okay.
It is a store of value. What I like about Bitcoin the most is it draws in money. Once the money's in Bitcoin, it can then be used to buy things like XRP, XLM, HBAR, etc.
Right.
Bring the money into the digital environment ecosphere, and then allocate it intelligently. Next.
So you're not the traditional age of the Bitcoiner or the crypto person. Did you come to this through your sort of truth seeking? You're like, I'm going to find the truth. I'm going to like cut through the noise. Is that how you discovered XRP and crypto?
By 2016, I realized I better learn what crypto is.
Okay, you were in early.
Well, that's not real early. My friend Aaron bought Bitcoin at 120 and sold it at 350 in 2010.
Yeah.
And told me about it. He said, Jim, you got to figure this out. You got to study it. So by 2016, I had a client in Spain who said, Jim, I'm going to set you up. I'm going to help you. And I'm going to buy a 2-year subscription. Can you give me a little discount for my help? I said, sure. Then I started accepting Bitcoin for a subscription, but it's not scheduled. I have to remind them and say, hey, look, your time is out. You want to do it again? And that's different from someone who's paying every 6 months with a system. Okay, so I started studying when that fellow helped me out, and he taught me what a smart contract was, and he taught me what the ledger was. The ledger is just an online accounting book that's encrypted. It's encrypted. Right. So, you know, if you have a federal election, you can do it honestly, which is not what the Democrats want. And I got to say something. I got a note here. I wanted to say something very important. The Democratic Party is now an alliance of 3 groups. Communists, they call themselves liberal, but they're not. They're communists. They're Marxist. Communists, narcos, narcotics, money laundering types, and Satanists, corporate Satanists. The Democrats are Marxist, Satanists, and narcos. Congratulations. You fooled a lot of dumbasses out there. All right, next question.
What's going to happen to the dollar? And, you know, obviously I know that's a big question. Maybe you can give me a short answer. And so if we're holding money in dollars, we know it's being inflated away. That's why we're moving into other assets. And you think there's going to be a parallel system. Is that right?
I don't know that it's going to be parallel as much as it's going to flip.
Yeah.
it's not going to be a 2-year transition where you get two systems. Okay, let me give you an example. If Bank of America realizes all of their transfers and the digital architecture using XRP, are they going to have side by side another system that's 5 times higher in cost? No. Okay.
Right.
Are their rivals going to say, we're going to stick with the old system because we really like paying 5 times more? No.
Right. Right.
Are central banks going to say, we're going to stick with the old system because we know that the treasury bonds that we're holding are impaired, and we expected a big debt write-down, and we want the debt write-down. So we're going to hang on with that. No. Are they going to, are trade partners like, Hyundai or Toyota, one South Korean, one Japanese, are they going to say, we're going to stick with the old system, we're going to take treasury bonds still, treasury bills, like 3-month treasury bills. We're going to take them because we know they're fallacious and we want the write-down. No. The transition is going to be a lot quicker than people think. I don't think it's going to be a 3-year transition. We may wake up one day and find, oh my gosh, they've done a reset. We got 6,000 financial firms in the United States that are now on board with this, and 20% are holding back. And then 5-6 months later, we realize the ones that held back, they're taking on very serious losses, and some of them have gone bankrupt. Adopt or die.
Right.
Now, the dollar, what's going to happen with the dollar? I didn't address that. Okay, this is tough. This is very tough. They're now trying to put the dollar, okay, the dollar is really the treasury bonds and the treasury bills. The bonds are long-term with interest, good, decent interest yield, and the bills are short-term with very low, but higher because they're raising interest rates. They're trying to dump those treasury bonds and treasury bills into the ocean of stable coins. And I believe that we're going to see a problem in the next 6 to 10 months with stable coins because they've got too many treasuries. The Russian economic, not minister, but like a economic counselor to their financial minister in Russia, he's now warned the United States is going to try to dump their treasuries into the ocean of stable coins, and they're going to try to get away with a global write-down and have everybody suffer the loss. And he's dead right. He's dead right. When I heard that they're dumping treasury bills into stable coins, I thought, whoa, what about the oversupply? What about the write-down? What about the debt downgrade by Moody's and S&P? Oh my gosh, they're not allowed to do a debt downgrade, but the Russians can, the Europeans can, the Chinese and Japanese and Koreans can. So what's going to happen to stable coins that have too many treasury? I need to study this because this is a contamination issue. All right, next question, quickly.
Okay, yeah. So maybe this is the last question. Is right. You think we're going into, so this financial reset, this big wealth transfer, is that going to include something like a depression?
I don't think so. If we get an event that is of an economic harmful nature, it might be a big stock market decline. And they're going to try to prevent that. Okay, Donald Trump has mentioned many times in private conversations that get out, they're going to do their dead level best to do a seamless transition. Okay, we don't want the stock market to go down 80% so that we move into tokenized assets and everything then comes built back. That'll destroy too many lives, too many businesses. We need to do a seamless transition. I've heard of one particular plan, and finally, it wasn't just a concept that was being discussed a year or two ago. They're talking about equity transfer, equity transition for treasuries. In other words, like, let's just say South Korea. They're one of my favorite examples because they're not huge, but they're important. South Korea has 3 conglomerates. They call them kaibols. In Japan, they're called kuretsu. That means conglomerate. We might see a country like South Korea get fully involved in XRP and declare that they don't want stable coins of a certain type. And they move forward and they make some problems with the United States. But I tell you, the bigger issue right now regarding stable coins is USD Tether. The BRICS nations, they are dumping treasury bonds like no tomorrow in the billions, in the hundreds of billions. And the United States government is expanding USD Tether and Bitcoin at the same time and handing like say, United Arab Emirates or Oman or Qatar. They're handing them USD Tether as they're dumping the treasuries. We're not going to get a big decline in the stock market. I think we're going to get the decline in Tether. We're going to see a ruination of the dollar in crypto form. It's called Tether, USDT, USD Tether. I think the write down is going to be isolated, confined to Tether. And it's going to be a big hit to Bitcoin. I'll just make up a scenario. It goes up to 180,000. It's now 125 or something, made new highs. October and November are great for cryptos. Tether's been going up in volume, not value. The value is fixed, but the volume is high. And they're abusing Tether. And that means they're inflating Bitcoin. With the dumping of treasuries, we're indirectly inflating Bitcoin. It's going to take a hit. And I think it's going to harm Tether. And the smart Arabs and Asians who sell their treasury bonds and take Tether, the smart ones are going to use the Tether to buy other crypto altcoins. Some of them are buying Ethereum, I guarantee you. Ethereum's up 140% since May. This is how things move in hyper speed. We may be talking, if you and I have a conversation by Thanksgiving, we may be at $5 XRP. Yeah. Okay, this is going to move fast. We got approvals of XRP ETFs that are happening, I think, between the 18th of this month and the 25th of this month. We've already got Rex Osprey, which is pure XRP, spot. When you hear spot XRP ETF, all it means is 1-to-1 and only XRP. It's a spot price, but there's some 2X out there, which means we're leveraged twice to XRP. I don't like that. These things move fast enough. They should really do a half XRP. That would move pretty quickly also. I mean, we went from 50 cents last year to $2 and $3 this year. That's impressive move. I mean, silver didn't do that, but silver's moving very well. I love silver. I love gold. I love wheat and precious metals, and I like XRP. By the way, I think XLM and Cardano and HBAR are going to do well, and XRP is going to do a lot better. We might see in a year or two, we might see like a 3 or 4X in XLM, and we might see a 10X in XRP. They're going to do well, and XRP is going to do a lot better because they are becoming slowly a replacement for treasury bills in global transfer. They are gradually going to move in and push out some of the SWIFT transfer business. SWIFT just lied, and go to golden-jackass.com, sign up for the newsletter, help me out, make a donation. I'm in the line of fire. I will explain in the October newsletter how SWIFT made a deceptive statement regarding XRP last week. They're already using XRP in SWIFT. They're already using it.
Yeah. Well, Jim, that's your newsletter. It's let's say it one more time. It's what was it?
Golden-jackass.com.
Jackass.com. And you put out a monthly newsletter, and then you can also book you for one-on-one coaching or one-on-one consulting.
Yeah, one-on-one conversation, consulting, call what you wish. I've done 800 in the last 5 years. And well, actually 5.5 years now. I do about one a week, and they're a lot of fun. They can be fun.
Yeah.
We yak it up, and they tell stories and tell me about your career, and then they have all these unusual questions, and I dispel some of their unusual, strange notions. Like, oh, I don't think Bitcoin is